Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Just a little bit more about the evolution of your career.
For the ripe old age of 24, I went into burnout.
Now, oftentimes being a double minority, you don't have the living room, locker room factor.
This because I tell folks, hey, you never know where your journey is going to take you.
I'd come from working at Accenture doing IT consulting.
Wow.
And this was really a humbling experience to make 150 cold calls every day.
The need is spectacular and there's nobody doing it.
As a society, we don't give enough credit to these different experiences we have. We want to make everything make sense.
Am I going to be grateful for everything that I do have, or am I going to focus on everything that I don't have?
I love helping people to see a vision come to life, but is this the best way for me to help people?
And I was like, you know what? I don't think I should be unhappy like this.
Tough people are greater than tough times.
And not everything's going to make sense, and that's okay. To the point that you're saying is where we build on these things that happen to us in life. You are such a great example of that. So let's dig into your story a little bit more. Hi, friends. Welcome to Greater Than Live. I am your host, Jen Hoverstad, and this is the live version of my podcast that you can find wherever you listen to podcasts, but it's called Greater Than with Jen Hoverstad, and it reminds you that you are greater than life's toughest obstacles. Today, we are streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn Live, and YouTube Live. So wherever you're joining us, even if it's a replay, thank you for being here. I hope you will be encouraged, and I hope you'll start joining me every Tuesday at 2:00 for just a little bit of encouragement through Greater Than Live. Now today, as you saw in the text of what we're going to be talking about, we're talking about the biggest trap that all of us fall into, all of us. And it takes just some mental, some mindfulness, some intentionality not to fall into this trap. Can you guess what I'm talking about? Maybe? Comparison. Friends, comparison in our professional lives, comparison in our personal lives. I have so many examples of comparison in my own life that, it's hard for me to even know where to begin, but I'm going to be totally vulnerable with you today and share some examples. And I would love for you to also share in the comments your own examples of when you have found comparison to be something that was just not helpful for you. And more often than not, comparison isn't helpful for any of us. It's not helpful for us to compare to other people. And that's what we're talking about today. We compare ourselves to other people, whether we know them or not. And whether you realize it or not, we do this often, right? We do this in the workplace. We compare ourselves to our coworkers. We compare ourselves to other people in the business that maybe we don't know, vendors that we work with. We compare ourselves to people we don't know on social media, or maybe people we do know on social media, because we compare ourselves in the pictures that they're sharing, which, by the way, is never an accurate presentation of reality. I shouldn't say never. It's usually not an accurate presentation of reality, but we still compare ourselves to that. We compare ourselves to our family members. We compare ourselves to announcements that we see or news articles written about people. We are constantly comparing ourselves to other people. So when I think about this, and I would love for you to drop your own stories in the comments if you have a comparison story, or maybe you did it this morning. Maybe you found yourself comparing yourself to someone else this morning. For me, the first comparison I remember, and my family still gives me a really hard time about it, my sister and I were singers growing up, and we sang in this pretty intense children's choir here in the Raleigh area. And I was in kind of the step up, it was called the chorale, and my sister was in the choir. So she was just getting started with her career. Well, wouldn't you know it, the first year my sister was in it, she got the Best Singer Award. But you know what? I compared myself to my sister, and I thought, why didn't I get the award? Why didn't I get the acknowledgement? I've been singing longer than she has. I'm better. I'm in the better choir, the more experienced choir. Why was I thinking that way? Well, it's easy to do, right? My sister got something for it. She got the award. She got the plaque that still hangs on her wall today. But you know what's funny? When I look back at that now, I think, okay, first of all, we weren't even like, we weren't on an even playing field. We were in two different groups, right? And my sister that year did the best she possibly could as a brand new singer in the choir. How awesome is that, right? That should be something to be celebrated, which thankfully my parents, they did celebrate that, even though I experienced the jealousy, the envy, a terrible attitude about my sister winning an award when really there was no comparison in terms of our talent levels, in terms of what we were doing. My sister was doing the best she could at that point in her life with singing, and I was also doing the best I could. I just didn't have a plaque to prove it. Now, some of you are sharing things. Larry, thank you so much for being here today on Greater Than Live. And yes, a lot of times we compare ourselves. And I love what you say here, that you have to stay in your lane and focus on what you can control. And friends, I'm going to give you 3 things that you can do today when you find yourself comparing yourself to someone else. Now, I gave you an example of comparing ourselves in family. And I know for those of you that have siblings, it happens, right? We compare ourselves to our siblings' successes. I also want you to think about this from a professional standpoint. I recently heard one of my absolute favorite chefs talk about her own journey and how she found herself comparing herself and her own ability and talents to another female chef who happened to be nominated for an award. And she said, like, she was jealous, she was envious. She thought, why did she get put on that awards list and not me? And then she took a step back and realized, like, wait, whoa, like, we're 2 totally different people. We have different abilities. We have different successes. And her success actually doesn't mean anything for me, right? It's not indicative of my success. It's also not indicative of my weaknesses. But professionally, we tend to find ourselves that way, right? And there's so often where there are organizations or award lists that are put out there, while they're meant to highlight and celebrate people's success, sometimes they unintentionally or perhaps intentionally actually bring us to knock heads and to think that someone's success is actually an indication of our own weakness, which is almost never the case. All right, one last example, and then we're going to get into these 3 key things that I want you to think about next time you find yourself comparing yourself to someone else. So many of you know, in 2018, at 34 years old, I was diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer. I had the opportunity to take part in this incredible support group through our local YMCA, where they brought other female cancer survivors together. And the first time we met, we were sitting in this room. I was by far the youngest in the group, which is not uncommon when you're diagnosed with breast cancer in your 30s. And all of these women were sharing their own experiences and why they were there. The woman sitting beside me, who was more than double my age, she says, well, I'm here because I want to be able to keep up with my great-grandchildren. And I took a moment and I thought to myself, and I was like, well, who does she think she is? I would like just to see my kids grow up. She's already seen her kids grow up. How do you get to say that? And so I came home all huffy and puffy, and my husband looked at me and he's like, well, why can't she experience her great grandkids? Why is that unfair to you? And it was like, oh, yeah, you're right. It's not unfair to me at all. And she should be allowed to experience life on her terms, however she wants. It doesn't matter her age. It doesn't matter where she is in life. And guess what? It didn't matter my age or where I was in life, because her goals and what she felt like as successes and drive in life had absolutely no bearing on me. None whatsoever. I inserted myself into her story, and not only did it give me all these feelings that I didn't really want to be dealing with, like jealousy and anger and frustration, but those were indicative of me. They weren't indicative of her. And it was something that I had to deal with and I spent a lot of time on. And think about that. I spent so much time thinking about someone else's story when really I could have just been focused on myself. And that's the thing about comparison, right? Stems up all of these feelings that really we don't have the time or energy to feel, and it wastes our time and energy. So here we go. I have 3 things for you. Oh my gosh. Yes, Larry. Larry is saying in the comments, there is power of having an abundance mindset, realizing the benefits for all versus having this tunnel vision, this crabs in a barrel mindset, as he says. I love that. Yes, that is so right, Larry. Thank you for sharing that today. And friends, if you want some encouragement, if you're tuning in today for Greater Than Tuesdays at 2:00, my friend Larry here does a midweek motivation on Wednesdays at noon. So I will be tuning in tomorrow. I would love for you to tune in tomorrow with me for Larry's midweek motivation because it always gets me thinking as well. All right, so here we go. The 3 things that I want you to pay attention to next time you find yourself comparing yourself to someone else. Number 1, you're going to stop comparing and you're going to celebrate others. Just like I've mentioned in these examples that I had. For me, I had to stop comparing myself to my sibling and actually just celebrate her success. It wasn't indicative of any success or non-success that I was having. Celebrate her success. As we've talked about with our teams at work, right? When one department does really well and has a success for the company, that's not indicative that your department didn't do well. Let's celebrate the success that they have. Let's celebrate our coworkers for the successes that they have, both professionally and personally, because it is a good thing to cultivate a culture of celebration. People want to be celebrated, but you have to remind yourself, celebrating others' successes is not indicative of you. It's not indicative of your weaknesses. It's not indicative of non-successes. So let's celebrate others. Number 2, you're going to stop comparing yourself to others and instead compare yourself yesterday to today. And yesterday may be 5 years ago yesterday. It may be truly yesterday, but you are going to compare yourself to yourself. I know that's hard. And actually, probably a lot of us compare ourselves to others because we don't really want to think about ourselves. We don't want to compare ourselves from past to present. But that is where the true comparison lies. Who were you yesterday and who are you today? And what can you find, as Larry was saying in the comments, what can you find to celebrate about yourself? Having that mindset of abundance because you've come so far, whatever it is. For me, it's coming through cancer treatment. It's for me, 10 years ago, this summer, 10 years ago, I was studying for the bar exam. And so seeing how other people studied while I was like, man, I don't know if I'm doing it the right way. They're doing it this way. I'm doing it this way. It didn't matter. I was studying the best way I knew how for myself. And then I passed the exam. My passing was not indicative of other people in terms of like when other people didn't pass, my passing didn't have anything to do with them not passing. We were all in our own lanes. But that's what you have to remember. Your successes, your weaknesses are not indicative of anyone else's successes and weaknesses. So I want you to stop comparing yourself to others and celebrate yourself today. Compare yourself today from yourself yesterday and years past. I see my friend Amanda here in the comments on Facebook. Amanda, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate seeing you. All right, last one. Number 3. Let's review the other 2 real quick. 1, you're going to stop comparing yourself to others and you're going to celebrate others. Number 2, you're going to stop comparing yourself to others and you're going to compare yourself yesterday to today. And number 3, you're going to own who you are. You're going to own who you are. No one else. You're not trying to be someone else. You're owning who you are. And that is what truly matters. When you can own who you are, the successes of other people don't matter. And it's easier to celebrate them because we're celebrating ourselves when we own who we are. All right. So can you do that this week for me? I'm going to go through it one more time. Stop comparing yourself to others and celebrate others. You're going to stop comparing yourself to others and you're going to compare yourself to yourself. And then you're going to own who you are. Now, I would love if you try this, if you try one of these 3 things or all 3 of these things for the rest of the week or into next week, would you just shoot me an email? Would you let me know how that goes, how this mental exercise goes for you, and maybe what benefits do you see when you stop comparing yourself to others, whether on social media or at work or in your family? What kind of benefits do you reap from that? I would love to know. You can email me at jen@jenhoversaid.com. Friends, thank you so much for joining me today on Greater Than Live. You can check out more of what I do on my YouTube channel. All of these videos are saved on YouTube as well as on my LinkedIn and my Facebook. So whatever platform you prefer, you can check out these videos there. You can also see my TED Talk about how to change the world by being an influencer on my YouTube channel. Friends, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you here again next Tuesday at 2 o'clock for Greater Than Live. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Just a little bit more about the evolution of your career.
For the ripe old age of 24, I went into burnout. Now,
Oftentimes, being a double minority, you don't have the living room, locker room factor.
this because I tell folks, hey, you never know where your journey is going to take you.
I'd come from working at Accenture doing IT consulting.
Wow.
And this was really a humbling experience to make 150 cold calls every day.
The need is spectacular, and there's nobody doing it.
As a society, we don't give enough credit to these different experiences we have. We want to make everything make sense.
Am I going to be grateful for everything that I do have, or am I going to focus on everything that I don't have?
I love helping people to see a vision come to life, but is this the best way for me to help people?
And I was like, you know what? I don't think I should be unhappy like this.
Tough people are greater than tough times.
And not everything's going to make sense, and that's okay. To the point that you're saying is where we really do, we build on these things that happen to us in life. You are such a great example of that. So let's dig into your story a little bit more.